People are leaving. If you could do it in a very quiet way so that those who are remaining be able to hear the questions and the answers. Jim, I never ask a question, but I'm going to take the first question.
All right.
Okay, the first question is, Antonio Guterres, the former Prime Minister of Portugal, is currently the head of the UN, the Secretary General. Could you please tell us what he did previously to running the entire UN?
Antonio Guterres, up until last year, the end of last year, was the director. He was the UN High Commissioner for Refugees. He was also he's also a socialist. He was a member of the Socialist International. He I went to a forum where he was talking, and he talked about how stupid it was that anybody could possibly think that terrorists would come up through the Mediterranean along with the huge Syrian diaspora that was going into Europe. He thought that was just really stupid. And then that was in the beginning of October. In the end of October, 9 terrorists, or however many there were, attacked and murdered hundreds of French citizens, tortured and murdered hundreds of French citizens. 2 of them were that came up with the refugee flow. 4 originally were coming up that way. 2 got caught, but the other 2 were part of the refugees, part of the group that committed that terrorism, and they had Syrian passports. Now, they were probably phony Syrian passports because ISIS has a passport producing facility, and so you can't tell, really where they were from, but they certainly intimated that they were from there, and they came up. That was the important part. They came up through the refugee program, through the refugee mass coming north. And of course, that's a good reason, because it establishes complete anonymity. And the FBI director had just said that people were going to do that, and he was standing there calling people stupid. And I was so tempted to say, how could you be so stupid? Don't you know that ISIS controls a number of those routes, and they make some of their money that way by charging people for passage? And why wouldn't they slide terrorists in with those groups? And now we see the consequences throughout Europe. Half of the people, not half, but a lot of the people that are in Germany, throughout Europe, that came up that way are doing a lot of damage. So he's a clown. I have those last 2, and that's it. I'm sorry. I ordered books, and they didn't get here on time. They're coming to Cincinnati tomorrow. So I've got 2 more, but I'll tell you what, if you want to pay me and give me your name and address, I will ship them to you at no extra cost.
The reason I asked you that question was that, okay, and we'll get books. We'll get more of Jim's books for the next meeting. Many people here already own your book because it's one that we carry monthly. They would just like to own it with your signature. That makes it really formal.
Well, same thing. If you send $10 or give me $10 and then give me your address, I'll send it to you signed.
Okay. The reason I asked you about Guterres was we now have the head of the UN.
Yeah, he's the head of the UN now.
Being the person who was the face of all of this forced refugee resettlement. It's not part of the UN. It's the top of the UN.
Yes.
So,
yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
Our next question. Mary.
Yes, we have a candidate running in Stowe who's very far left, and she's been to a group called Indivisible. Do you know anything about this group? Could you tell me about it? And the other issue we have is our Stowe Century is very leftist, and they used to print my letters. They won't print them anymore. And what I would really like to do is put out some flyers, but I don't want to get sued, and we really need legal advice and help to protect us, because it's very expensive when you have a lawsuit.
Well, I'm the last person to ask. I mean, my my feeling about lawyers is 500 at the bottom of the sea is a good start. But no, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
Will you be sleeping
There are some
outside
good lawyers.
tonight?
There are some good lawyers. I happen to know some. In fact, some are in this room.
Yes, some are putting you up, actually.
So I better be quiet. Shh, I didn't say that. You didn't hear me say that. But yeah, they're putting up with me. Yeah, that's true. But you're not going to get sued. I don't think you're going to get sued. But Indivisible is a group. They wrote a book, a handbook on how to protest. A lot of them are former Obama administration officials. And Indivisible, the booklet that you can download as a PDF has, really caught on. And I don't know how many hundreds of thousands or whatever it is that they've downloaded, but it's become kind of a thing. And so Indivisible has become kind of a thing. But they're all just part and parcel of this mass resistance that's Antifa, the Revolutionary Communist Party, Workers' World Party, all of them. They're all the same. They're all the same. They're a bunch of extreme radical leftists that are trying to create chaos to take this country down. But they are former Obama administration officials, so that should tell you, if you don't already know, more about the Obama administration than anybody wants.
All right. This is a very important guy. He owns a newspaper locally, and he's one of us.
Oh, wow.
His name is Joe.
A threatened species.
Well, not really. But I got a question for you.
Yeah.
You know, you and Phil have enlightened this entire group. What connection do you have with the White House in educating Donald Trump with this information?
I can't say. No,
I mean,
well, honestly, no. We know some people who work in the White House. We've been to some staff meetings. I can't really say too much, but primarily, there are people. Everybody knows what's going on. Okay, and Trump is learning what's going on. And what I was trying to show in my presentation is that, he's really not stupid, that he's trying to do things and he's being careful. He's trying to do things in an atmosphere where literally the entire town is against him. And 99.9% of the bureaucracy is against him. In the Justice Department, we criticized, we thought Jeff Sessions was really going to go to town. Well, he has in some regards. I mean, he's unshackled all of the border agencies, and we discovered, oh, what a big surprise. The border agencies really want to do their job, and they're going after illegal aliens like dogs going after a tennis ball or something. I mean, they are really fighting, and they are really doing their job now. And so the numbers of illegal aliens coming across the border are plummeting. The numbers being arrested internally are going up. And that all discourages border crossers. It discourages border crossers who come claiming to be asylum seekers, which most of them aren't. It discourages border crossers that come in hoping to be part of the Cuban Haitian entrant program. Border crossers in so many different categories, in addition to the refugee resettlement program, that are now very discouraged because the law enforcement laws are being enforced. Jeff Sessions is doing that by himself with the help of maybe 2 or 3 staff members that are loyal to him. Everybody else in the entire Justice Department, they won't write memos, or if they do, they'll write them opposing to what he wants. If he wants a legal opinion on what he can do about this, that, or the other thing, they write this massive legal opinion saying, no, we disagree with that. He can't get people to help him. So he's working by himself with a couple of other people running that entire program. And they still need to replace lots of the, USAs, the U.S. attorneys that are in the field offices. They fired a bunch of them. I don't know that they fired all of them, but they fired a bunch of them. Now they need to replace them. They've only replaced it, I think, I don't know, 50 or so. I don't know how many there are total, but they haven't replaced anywhere near the amount they need to. And so in the meantime, those are taken over by assistant attorneys who are all lefties. They're all part of the permanent bureaucracy. 99% are left-wing. Many of them are extreme left-wing. I'd say, in fact, I know a lot of them are communists.
You know, what you said about Tillerson is very troubling. I mean,
I
very
didn't
troubling
say it,
indeed.
he said it, but he knows
What
more about it
Phil
than
said.
I do, but
Unbelievable.
yeah. But yeah, well, it's troubling what he's doing. It is.
Hi, Jim.
Yeah.
My name is Matthew Ewer, and I'm a third-year college student, and there's no mention of the truths about Islam in any of my classes.
Of course not.
Yeah, I'm in a controversial religion class, and he says Islam is a religion of peace. Right.
That's what they say.
So you know,
Okay.
I'll try to mention something every once in a while. It's like an open debate class, and you'll say, all right, let's try not to get into an Islamophobia kind of movement. So what I'm getting at is, what can we do to inform college students what's really going on? Because the longer we wait, the more people get brainwashed by professors at these universities.
Well, you know, a big thing. Yeah, well, it's just true. Well, the trouble is, that's a good, yeah, very good question. The trouble is the university culture, of course, and that's something that's only going to be reformed over a long period of time. We could start, the federal government could start by defunding those universities that don't practice diversity in their hiring programs. That's one thing. We as individuals can vote with our feet and not allow our students to attend universities that don't allow diversity of hiring in their of their professors and diversity of courses, as in not all radical left propaganda. Some courses that actually teach students what they went there to learn. There's a few very good colleges that remain true to their mission. Send your kids there. Don't send them to any of these other schools. We need to vote with our feet. We need to vote with our money. And that's the best way to get their attention. In terms of what we can do right now, very little. You should, if you haven't, you should go to David Horowitz Freedom Center and look at their, they have a whole program for colleges where he really tries to take on that whole attitude in colleges. Hillsdale, yes, Hillsdale is very good. Grove City is very good. Claremont, I'm not sure. I think it's still pretty good. There's Grove City. Yeah, PA. Yeah, there's a bunch.
Matt,
Who?
any handouts that you get here that you would like copies of to take to your class, you bring them to my attention and you will have them. Okay.
And you know, the other thing that I've found, Matt, is that you really disarm people when you give them just facts. You know, you don't have to say, I mean, it's obvious to me, it's prima facie evidence that, well, there's a lot of Muslims that are peaceful, but let's face it, the people that are committing terrorist acts in this country and around the world, they're not Methodists, I'm sorry. They're not Catholics. They're not even
Jews.
Jesuits.
They're
you know?
not Jews either.
They're not Jews. Thank you. They're Muslims, and but I think you get more. You disarm them when you just bring facts. Like my book is just facts, lots of numbers that talk about what it costs, lots of numbers about what these people bring to communities, And these are things that they can't argue against, so they change the subject. And I know, because I've seen how they change the subject in the propaganda that they've been putting out since I've been going around doing these kind of lectures.
Okay, our next person.
I just have a question. There's a movement going around to have a constitutional convention. Are you
yeah.
aware of that?
Yeah.
And who's really behind that? And how dangerous would this be?
Well, I don't know. There's a lot of opinions about that. Mark Levin is a big proponent for that. In my mind, if you have a culture in DC that doesn't respect the rule of law, what does it matter if you change the law? You know, what does it matter if you amend the Constitution if they're giving the middle finger to the Constitution as it stands? That's my thing. And then there's always, in my mind, the possibility that the convention gets taken over by the radical left, and then they skew it to do something that they could have never done before. And they're much more organized than we are. And as I said earlier in my presentation, they have billions of dollars to play with, and they can mobilize armies of paid volunteers. I love that. Obama came up with some gems of phrases. They paid volunteers. Isn't that wonderful? And I'd like to be a paid volunteer, frankly. I don't get paid even when I'm paid sometimes. But anyway, so yeah, I don't think it's a good idea. I'm not, rabidly against it, but those are the reasons that I think it's going to be ineffective at best. And that's where I stand.
Just wondering if either you or Mr. Haney had any updated information on the Debbie Wasserman Schultz affair.
I don't know what updated means.
I think she's asking, are they looking into those Muslim
yeah,
IT people? Is there any investigation going forward that's active? I think that's Carol's question, yes? Yes. Because our congresswoman, the woman who I ran against, was the second highest payee of that group.
Wonderful.
And Carol lives in the district, so.
Yeah. No, I don't know the answer to that, honestly. I don't know. I haven't followed it closely enough to give you a confident answer. Phil would be more likely to.
Okay, hold on. We have the seated expert here.
Yes, if you look, Congress had what is called an informal briefing about 2 weeks back on the IT scandal in the House. Louis Gohmert, Steve King from Iowa, Jim Jordan, and a couple other congressmen had 3 experts, subject matter experts, including Tom Fitton from Judicial Watch, and a reporter from the Daily Caller, and an IT specialist that worked on the Hill for 13 years. It's on YouTube. You can go query it. It's the IT hearings on the Pakistani IT scandal on the Hill, and it's about 2 hours long, and you'll hear all the most recent facts and figures on the status of the case, and they intend to continue going forward with it in the future. So that's the most recent. There's a lot of information that they brought out. These are ad hoc committees that don't require the permission of a chairman to do, and so they intend to do some other kinds of informal briefings in the months and weeks ahead. So that's the most recent movement on that case. You can find it on YouTube.
It's one of our young people here who comes along.
Well, this is a two-parter. I'll first go with the easy part, and the next one is more of like a revelation about what happened in Rocky River. My first thing is that what can us as a whole, the people that do have this information, can do. Like, I was thinking of something like, like Anonymous, they like really like explode it, all this information. I think we need to play dirty, and we need to get this stuff out and open, like really like strong. I think this is what we need to do, because this is a new era. I mean, I know there's a lot of elderly people here, but I know. And I have to tell you something, not that long, I'm gonna be your age, so, maybe,
I resemble that, Mark.
but I'm 34, I'm giving away my age, I'm 34, so, what can we do to really make it, like, stick to the people,
Yeah,
even people
I
that
got
just are offended by our beliefs?
I got
What can we do?
I got you. Thank you for coming. Thank you for coming. And you're a spring chicken, I'll tell you. Well, I went through a list of a lot of things we can do, and I'm going to stick with that list. Everybody asks what we can do, but what they really want to hear is the magic pill. They want to hear one answer that they can go out and do tomorrow or next week. They want to know one place where they can go and slam their fist down and express whatever it is they are. There isn't a magic pill. There is not a magic pill. Everything that we're doing is going to take time. And my presentation, I tried to indicate how things are going in DC, and there's reason for cautious optimism, but we are facing a very big mountain, very late in the game, with very few resources. Our biggest liability is that we don't have the media. So we need to exploit the media that we do have, and that's Facebook, and that's Twitter, and that's the internet. But I would say do not abandon a traditional media like local newspapers. Write letters to your local newspaper, and if they don't publish it, call them up and ask why. Call them up and say, listen, you are publishing these clowns every day of the week. Why not publish my letter? And if you harass them enough, they'll do it. So it's not easy. See, it's not easy, and it's not something we can do once or twice. It's something we have to persist in, something we have to steel ourselves to do, because it forces us to go outside of our zone of comfortability and really get active. We need to change the culture. We need to change the political situation, and we can do that locally. The local politics is a cesspool of corruption. We need to elect local people who will clean things up and do the job that they're supposed to be doing, because really all across the country they don't, and the reason is because nobody's paid attention. Nobody's paid attention, and it just becomes routine.
Okay, and my second parter is that I know a lot of facts about the Rocky River girl, and I can't, the Rocky River, Tiani, I cannot reveal some information I know, but it's more heartbreaking than you think it is, and that's all I gotta say.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Hi, I guess I'm in a good place here following her comments. I feel that I don't know if you've thought about this, when you're trying to decide your policies of moving forward, and I know you're moving forward on many fronts, but I feel like it's time for something very large too. And I feel like America should just stop, catch its breath, stop almost all immigration, and have a discussion as an American family for a generation, 15 or 20 years. And
I
then
agree.
there is so much to talk about and so much to learn and understand. So I don't know, if something, the people that are sympathetic to this could get together and come out as a group and say, this is what we recommend. If you ask for a generation, you might get 10 years. And also American citizenship, I don't know how many years it is, but that could be extended too. Is it 3 years or 5 years?
Well, for refugees, it's
7
5.
years? Make it 20. Ask for 20. This is such a privilege to be in this country, and nobody pays much attention anymore. That, it's not being taught about in school. Families aren't paying attention. It will take that long for them to really absorb it and to appreciate the privilege of being a citizen.
Well, I agree. The annual, we allow 1 million people a year to become legal permanent residents. 1 million people a year. And 85% are family reunification. Only 15% are employment related. They talk about how important it is to open our borders to bring in people to do jobs that supposedly Americans won't do, although I don't even buy that argument. But it's only 15% of that 1 million a year. The rest are family reunification. And so Trump is doing a lot to try to slow that whole thing down, but I agree 100%. We should pause our entire immigration program. It's the 1968 Immigration and Nationalities Act, or 1965, written largely by Ted Kennedy's staff, which created this monster that we have today, along with the Refugee Act, which was also written by Ted Kennedy and Joe Biden while he still had a brain. And those are destructive, deliberately premeditated, destructive pieces of legislation designed to bring in people from all over the world that will become new Democrats, but will not assimilate to this nation. And those laws need to be, in my mind, they need to be abolished. The trouble is getting a quorum or even 10 or 20 members of Congress that will stick their necks out and agree with you. That's the problem. So that notion, and we started really, we made a statement when we elected Donald Trump this year, and it was a statement that was very powerful. It was powerful in that we said, we don't like where things are going, and we are going to do something really surprising to make a statement about that. And in DC, they've begun to take notice, and the more we win, the more they're going to take notice. The more they take notice, the more we will feel emboldened to say more things that push more things that we want. It's not going to be easy, but right now, you couldn't get 10 members of Congress to support a proposal like that, even though I think it's, what we absolutely have to do. We have to absolutely get a control of our immigration program, both legal and illegal.
Hi, I know the problem with the people in the State Department and the Justice Department, that Obama pretty much made them all civil service employees, and that's why it's hard to fire them. Couldn't Trump just undo that?
Well, yes and no. It's interesting. One thing that I'm waiting for somebody to propose is a reformation of the civil service laws, because the civil service laws have become so convoluted and so obstructionist that, there was a guy in the EPA that was at home for 3 years, not coming to work at all, watching pornography every day on his computer and receiving a check. And they didn't fire him. I mean, come on. And so this is the kind of problems you face. And I saw it when I worked in the government. I saw that we had a secretary. She was just a doll. I loved her, but she was dumb as a post. And she couldn't do half the work. She could answer the phone, and that was about it. And my boss tried to get her fired. And oh my God, the whole place, she was black, unfortunately. And so, of course, the whole place went up in arms, calling him a racist and everything else. And all he wanted to do was replace her with somebody who was competent. And this is the Office of Management and Budget, the White House Budget Office, which should hire good people. And the people that it hires to be the analysts are people, except for me, were the cream of the crop in the, you know, I was kind of a rabble-rouser, but the rest were, you know, really people from Harvard and other places like that, smart people, not necessarily wise people, excuse me, but we needed good people, and she was not good people, but we couldn't fire her. So that's the kind of situation you face, but we have majorities in the House, the Senate, the presidency. That is one thing that I have said repeatedly, and I've said this to people who can hear it, that we need to reform our civil service laws. We need to abolish public employee unions because they are, they foment corruption. They foment a symbiotic relationship between politicians and the union, which the politicians support the union supports the politician, and it's all on tax dollars. And so that's why what Walker did in Wisconsin was incredibly good, but it was also incredibly brave because you saw what the reaction was. They went nuts. But those are the kind of things that we need to do, and then we can start firing those employees. But in the meantime, we could transfer them, and that's one thing that they haven't done anything of. I wish they would do that. Send all those DOJ recalcitrant lawyers to count penguins in, you know, Antarctic or something.
I want to thank you,
You can, yes.
and I feel privileged to be here this evening.
Thank you. So do I.
In answer to the question about what we can do, I think it's really up to the young people. I think that the reason I've been feeling out of place for years and years and years because I feel that there's no one to talk to. I find myself being more ostracized, having less friends, because I do speak up.
Yep.
And sometimes I feel like I'm banging my head against the wall, and all I'm getting is a headache because I'm not making any headway. I'm not making any progress. There's no one that I can convince. And if it's not up to the young people to get them involved in this thing, I think, I'm sorry to say, to put a damper on this whole evening, because I thank you, because I finally feel as though I'm liberated and I don't feel that I'm crazy. But if it's not for the young people, I think the old people are beyond changing their mind. And I've been trying for years. And they all think I'm an oddball. They think that I don't know what I'm talking about. And it's a very disheartening and a very lonely place to be.
I know all about it.
So,
but you know, I'll tell you something. Let me tell you something. Because both my children are that way. You know, they've been raised in public school, and the public schools have, you know, if you say something like, you know, transgenderism is a, you know, maladjustment, they'll go nuts. You can't talk about things. I keep talking about things anyway, and they know I love them, and they love me. My hope is that, like me, when they grow up, it will start percolating down, it will start filtering in. My older daughter goes to Oberlin. Oh my gosh. And I didn't want it, but my ex-wife she was very much in favor of it, and she appealed to her daughter and got her to go. But my daughter's a smart girl, and she's an open-minded girl, and she'll come around. Might take a while.
do you think we have enough time? Time is of the essence. We're dealing with lunatics. We're dealing with people that are in a very big hurry.
We may not. And that's why I say, and have always said, and continue to say, and will continue to say, pray, because we need supernatural intervention. We need it. Oh,
You must recognize this wonderful.
I know this lady. She's a doll. She's
Thank
a
you.
doll.
On one of your slides that's titled, I think, Hate America Tactics.
Yeah.
At the bottom, you had Saul Alinsky.
Right.
I asked Lisa Watson. She was our keynote speaker at an OLC event at the end of September. She is a former member of the ACLU board, went to New York and everything, so she'd seen the light. And after our events, I said, tell me, what kind of books do you suggest? Or what you know, what's the left reading? And she said, well, you know, Saul Alinsky,
Rules
that's
for
old.
radicals, yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
but that's kind of old.
Oh.
And I wondered if you, and in the book she suggested was right away. I mean, she right away said, don't think of an elephant, George Lakoff. Are you familiar with that?
Never heard of it.
He wrote that in about 2004, and I'm currently listening to it on CDs.
Huh.
But in that short piece, he mentions moral politics, and she referenced that this is what the left is following. It's about framing
Yes.
the issue.
That's what I said right at the beginning.
And since it's from 2004, there's a lot of reference to George W. Bush,
Right, sure.
were weapons of mass destruction and all that
Right.
sort of thing. So anyway, you might add that to your list of
Oh,
reading.
yeah, I will. In fact, send me an email about that because I want to get that and I'll forget. I would like to get that. I'd like to read it. Yeah, no, that's really true. And it is. They frame the narrative along the lines of compassion, social justice, equity, fairness. So if you oppose whatever it is, you're automatically against social justice, you're automatically against equity, so therefore you're a hater, you're a bigot, you're a racist. That's all there is, and that's the entire narrative, and that's what they have been trying to establish about America since 1917, and now Antifa and those other radicals go out into the street with the pretext that we are all what they have been trying to say we are for 100 years. And of course, they're totally wrong, but that doesn't stop them. It's never stopped the left before. All they need is a pretext. They could care less if they're right or wrong.
Jim, this is going to be the last question of the night. This has been asked to me by many people over the last year. The role of the Council on Foreign Relations, the hold that they have over our elected officials in both parties.
Well, I have not studied the CFR very closely, nor have I studied the Trilateral Commission or the Bilderbergs. A lot of that, I think, for a career politician is a resume stuffer. You know, Republicans like to say that they're members of the CFR because it means they're part of the inside crowd and they may be somewhat acceptable to the inside crowd. In terms of what it actually does in terms of policy, I don't know. I don't think it does that much, frankly. I could be wrong about that, but I don't think it does. Just like I think the Bilderbergs is a private meeting where you can learn about the stuff that these world globalists are planning for us. And if you're an insider, you can find out all the horrible kinds of ideas they have floating around. But I don't think it's any, like global conspiracy kind of a thing. I think that more comes from the Communist Party, comes from our enemies overseas who have agents here who are agents of influence like George Soros. It comes from organizations. A good one is the Institute for Policy Studies. Organizations that try to develop narratives. That's their big thing, is developing narratives. Developing narratives that then justify policies. The narratives are crap, the policies are crap. But once they establish them and have done all of the background, think tank research and have a bunch of papers with a lot of footnotes and guys with PhDs at the end of their names having written them, then they can come and say, oh, well, we need to do this or we need to do that. It's all just towards their ultimate goal of imposing socialism in this country. But I don't think the CFR particularly has that much sway, but I could be wrong. They might. They probably do. Oh, well, there you go. Now that's the left for you.
All right, thank you, everybody. We'll see you November 27th. Thank you.